Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday last week.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So just been sort of supporting her through that. She was in London.
Oh, hello everyone out there to Discovering Buddhism, Monday night. Thanks for being there. This is our third class on how to develop Bodhichitta, compassion, loving kindness. And next week's the last one. So you should have tonight's notes I sent out this morning and a couple of pages of questions, One's called assessment questions, which are the ones that they actually give answers to, which I'll give out next week. And then there's another list called public exam questions. Quite a scary name. That's different sort of questions, but if you'd like to try answering any of them on either page and emailing them to me, then I'm more than happy to look at them before you get the answer. And particularly with public exam questions, if you want to have a go at those, because there's no set answers to those. And if you've got a bit of time, you might like to just see what you can make of them. Okay, we'll go through those next week. Okay. So let's, as always, start with 5 minutes breathing meditation to calm ourselves. And get comfortable sitting, lying, whatever's standing, walking, whatever's the most comfortable. Just do watching the breath, mindfulness practice for about 5 minutes. Okay, coming into our inner world, our body, and also looking at what's happening in the mind. Start with our mind, our motivation. Just spend a moment disconnecting from the day, the busy day we had today, the outside world. A moment appreciating our great fortune to spend some time studying Buddha's teachings. Remember our motivation, always not just for our own personal development and benefit, but we're doing the study and meditations to help others, particularly the Mahayana Bodhichitta motivation, which is we're doing our practice for the benefit of all sentient beings. Travel the path to enlightenment, become fully useful to all sentient beings. Now coming into our body, making sure we're relaxed, checking the back, reasonably straight, shoulders relaxed, eyes can be closed or just slightly downcast, gazing ahead. You can use the out breath to breathe out physical tension in the body, to relax more deeply with each breath, letting go of all the busyness of the mind. Gradually become more aware of the movement of the body with the breath, the rhythm of the breath. Nothing to change, just to observe. Just staying with the breath, just being aware of whether we're still on the breath, checking every now and again, gently bringing our attention back to the breath when it wanders, as it will, patiently coming back to the breath. Following each breath all the way into the body, all the way out of the body. Just relax, come back to earth. So if anyone out watching on YouTube live, if they're having trouble hearing, I'm not sure whether I'm close enough to the computer, but if anyone's having problems with sound or sight or whatever, maybe just put a little message in the live chat and I'll maybe move it a bit closer. Okay, so just got a few notes, sorry, a few questions rather from last week, the easy ones. First one, remember we're talking about, first of all, we talked about self-compassion last week. It's important. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence. It's having a healthy respect for ourselves and confidence that we can actually study the teachings, put them into practice, make some progress. And so that's not vanity, it's not pride. And all the teachers, particularly His Holiness the Dalai Lama, always emphasize the importance of strong confidence, self-confidence, and having made peace with ourselves. So that's important to be able to help others. We need to be able to help ourselves to give any sense of peace or support to others. So that book by Thupten Jingpa, Fearless Heart, is a very good one to refer to. Lots of clinical trials done by Thupten Jingpa to Westerners about the beneficial effects of generating good, healthy self-confidence, self-esteem. He doesn't always call it self-esteem, but a good sense of self-worth. And then we had a look at the first of the two main ways of developing compassion. That's this, what's called the 7-step or 7-point cause and effect method, where we use particularly the mother, the role of the mother in our lives, incredible sacrifice and kindness and compassion, to help generate a feeling of great warmth and closeness to all beings who have all been our mothers at one stage. So what are these? That brings us to the 3 points. The first 3 points involve this contemplation of a mother. It doesn't have to be the mother if we haven't had the good fortune to have a mother who's been helpful, kind. So anyone in our life who's filled that role, helped us be raised, given us support, taught us the basics, given us food, clothing, shelter, and so on. The first one. There's one, we have Heather in a live body in our class. Heather, I just ask you, I'm not putting her on the spot, but just so you can cheat, you can look back if you've got them.
Yeah.
First, I'll give you the first one. The first one is to accept that all sentient beings have been our mothers in past lives. So that's a big step, because that involves accepting past lives, continuity of mind, reincarnation, and that we've had infinite numbers of different incarnations. And if there's no limit to the relationships we've had with other beings, it's been going on forever, then everybody has been our mother at some stage. So we can use logic, or we can just look up the text. There's plenty of text, Nagarjuna's text, Lam Tsongkhapa, but it's better to actually use some reasoning as well, as always stressed in the Gelugpa tradition. So if all sentient beings accept that we've had an infinite number of relationships, including the mother relationship with all other beings, that animals, humans, all beings. Second one?
Remembering their kindness.
Thanks. Remembering the kindness. So that comes sort of straight after. Usually if we think of our mothers, we think of have a warm feeling of all the love and kindness and help they've given us in past life, in this life, because most of us can't remember past life, but certainly in this life. And the third one?
wishing to repay their kindness.
Okay, so if we feel that they've given us unbelievable amount of kindness, compassion, love, there's the natural feeling that we should do what we can to repay them. We could probably never repay them. So certainly the feeling many of us have. But those first 3 points, the beginning of the 4, 5, and 6, and 7 points, which is the movement towards developing love, compassion, taking responsibility, and then bodhicitta. So they're the causes, and the feeling love, feeling compassion, bodhicitta, and so on are the effects of thinking about the kindness of the mothers. So often when teachings usually just focus on those first 3. You could spend many sessions just on each one of those points. Lama Zopa often teaches many sessions just on what the mother's done for us. From birth, he gives usually an example of his own mother. Apparently was incredibly kind. They grew up in Laudo, incredibly remote part of Nepal. And there's quite a few brothers and sisters. Some of them died. And the father died very young. And so the mother was left to raise the family. Many, I think all of them were sort of under 5, including Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So she has to go out and collect firewood all day, every day, try and get some food, then come back and cook the food, and then look after the kids and do the same thing again. So Rinpoche used to teach in great detail about how he used to just spend the whole day playing, and the mother used to go up in these incredible, difficult conditions, often in freezing cold, snow and so on, because it's very hard to get firewood and so on. And the father, without the husband, it was incredibly difficult upbringing to bring up the children. So a very good example he provides there. And later she became a nun, got ordained, and spent many years with Lama Zopa at Kopan. Remember when I did the Kopan course, she was actually there in robes, spending the whole day. When we came out of the Gompa, she'd be standing there reciting Omani Padme Hum, Omani Padme, on the mawa, the mattress. And so she was a beautiful face, very Nepalese, Sherpa face, very weather beaten. Okay, that's getting a bit off the point. So that's those 3 important points. We're going to actually do the 7-point mind training at the end of the session tonight. And so we'll be emphasising very much those first 3. And when we get to next week, we'll look at the exchanging self for others technique, which is the one I'm more familiar with, because it's the one that I think has been sort of stressed more in all the teachings I've been. Rinpoche always says if there's any problems with this one, the exchanging self for others is a good one. He says that in the extracts of the readings. So there's probably, he might think it's more suitable for our minds, I don't know. But maybe particularly for a bit skeptical about reincarnation. But then there's another one we'll look at next week. It's actually just a combination of the 2. I think they call it the 12-step 12-step compassion meditation, which is put together, I think, by Lama Tsongkhapa. So a collection of both in one meditation. Okay, let's look at the next one. If all sentient beings have been our mothers, fathers, friends, enemies, every other relationship, why focus on just the mother relationship? Okay, we could focus on the fact that they've all been our enemies. We've hated them all at some stage, as well as we've loved them all at one stage, and we've been loved by them all at one stage. Why just focus on this one?
I don't know, it's love and kindness.
loving kindness, it's obviously going to be much more beneficial for us if we're trying to develop loving kindness, which is essential to make any progress in our practices. And if we ever want to become enlightened, we've got to develop loving kindness, compassion. So that's why we focus on that as the easiest one to develop loving kindness, compassion for most of us. Always with that proviso that if there's some other person who's more important in your upbringing, you can focus on that person. Okay, so we use the relationship as the most useful for us, for our purpose. We're not blocking out reality. We accept that there has been every relationship, but we're using what's useful out of that set of reality, those different facts. It's fine. We won't want to make ourselves depressed or feel worse by focusing on how bad people have been to us and so on. So we choose the other relationship. So here's an interesting one. Can you think of any social or cultural conditioning or habits? So this is something that we've learned that could make it difficult to practice equanimity. Remember the idea of equanimity we did in the first session? Just accepting that the way we normally look at our sociological group, our friends, people who affect us are the ones we really like, the friends, could be the partner, the parents, the family, close friends, and then the enemy, the people who make us really feel uncomfortable, we try and avoid. Quite often someone at work, could be a relative, sometimes we have trouble with a particular relative. And then the strangers, which is the 99.9% of all people in the world we don't have anything to do with, so we usually give them virtually no thought at all. So equanimity helps us to realize this is a foolish way, a very small-minded way of looking at other beings. We don't have to, it's quite an easy meditation to at least accept that people have helped us in so many ways. Everything we eat is grown by other people, virtually, unless we're cooking our own or growing our own. Most of us are not. Our clothing, our computers, everything. So we accept that we couldn't live without other beings. And then there are other practices as well. So some things in our upbringing can work against that. Not just that some people we don't get on with, and some people are strangers, friend, enemy, stranger. Some other things that condition us. Can anyone think of anyone? Anything?
Consumerism.
What was it?
Consumerism. Capitalism. Consumerism.
Oh, consumerism. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, consumerism, because people can't hear that. I'll just repeat what they say. So thanks. Heather says consumerism, which is a bit more about that.
Oh, for my point, we're just damaging the environment and needing things, focusing on things more than relationships and happiness.
Oh, okay, yes. So that's really looking at a bit at how we're sort of maybe not helpful
searching
to others. But what I was thought you were saying something like, this is our modern competitive society, having the bigger house than the neighbour, having the better car.
I meant that.
Yeah. So that's also right from the beginning. Advertising is telling us right from the word go. Even as children, we're watching how many hundreds of advertisements when we were tiny, because we watched TV and listen and so on. And it's about having better, bigger, better, the next model, the more sustainable even, because some people can be competing on that, being greener, which is good, but can also be, I'm greener than you, can also be like a personal competition.
Yeah,
definitely nowadays. What about, so with that could go class, because we've we can afford to have the most up-to-date solar panels, the most perfectly recyclable water system. And so this is more a very sort of contemporary type of competitiveness. Classically, we have a much better car, we can afford to live in a better suburb. Everything sort of shows that we're in a different class from those poor people and so on. So that can be another one. What school we went to, that's another big one. Very, because that can actually sort of set the tone for the rest of your career. I think a lot of the parents will be thinking that if they send their children to a private school, then they'll make contacts and they'll have this group that will keep them in this like a cocoon, and they'll go straight into the university. Then they'll have all these good contacts to get them the best job as lawyers, doctors, and so on. And so, just think how selective this is. This is not equanimity. We want to be better educated than the others. We want to be, which for parents, they're also concerned of the children. This is also loving kindness, compassion. But it can also, for the child, make them think that they're special. This is why I think travel is so fantastic, particularly to third world countries, if we can do it while we're still young. Perhaps I think a gap year and so on. I was lucky enough to do a lot of backpacking when I was probably from about 19, 20, 21, 20, in the early 20s. And I really only wanted to go to Africa, Southeast Asia. I wasn't interested in looking at a city that looked like Sydney. So just completely, I thought this is better. I've learned far more in these trips than I ever did from going to school for 12 years. Because you actually just suddenly, if you haven't got much money, people will usually look after you if you're young. And usually you learn how basically compassionate everybody is, and there's a lot of trust. And there's this wonderful equality between all the different you're in different cultures, different races, and so on. And it seems to break that down. And all that conditioning we had in our little world in very comfortable Sydney or suburbia, or wherever we were, can be broken down, healthily broken down, and we have a much wider view, just my experience. So then there's education, of course. We need education to help more. The more education, like doctors and better psychologists, whatever what we're doing. But also that can also put us in a selective group. We just have to be careful about not becoming, just staying open-minded, seeing that there's actually humanity beyond these superficial labels of education, social status, where you live. It's very superficial. But beyond that is this common humanity that we stress a lot in our equanimity meditation. Religion, another one. Very, just think of Catholic Protestant over history, how that divided the whole England and Ireland and so on. Then there was the Jewish Arab split. So just so much has gone into religion to divide up as a cause for dividing humanity. Not the religion itself, it's the people distinguishing. Okay, so I remember one of the first books I read for the high school certificate was Gulliver's Travels. It's a very fantastic book. It's not really widely read, I don't think, these days, but one of the it was very much a satire of English political life by Jonathan Swift. And just to show how ridiculously silly it is to divide people up into parties, Tories and Whigs and Tories, Labour and Liberal and so on, conservative, not conservative. He said in Lilliput, where Gulliver was washed up on the island, everybody distinguished themselves as to whether they're a big Indian or a small Indian. And the big Indians used to start their boiled eggs from the big end, and the small ends used to start eating them from the pointy end. and that actually divided the whole of the political system. So I often think about that when I'm thinking about, left-leaning, right-leaning, so how ridiculous it was, very ahead of his time. Something's happened with my computer, it's telling me my battery's low. Do you think you could
Yeah,
just see if
let's
it's
check.
actually connected?